The morning sunlight shimmered off the hood of our SUV as I loaded the last bag into the trunk. It should have been a normal Friday. A family weekend near the Quebec border, peace laughter, the sound of my grandson's giggles filling the air. Yet as I reached for a small black overnight bag, Amber had insisted I carry a strange chill pricked at the back of my neck. Something about the way she handed it over last night, her smile too wide, her tone too bright, had lodged in my thoughts like a splinter. I tried to brush it off. After all, this was supposed to be simple. Just family. Just love. I'm Miriam Calhoun, 68 years old, wife to David for 48 years, mother of 2 grown children, and grandmother to a boy who still thinks I can fix anything. Family has always been the axis of my world. I've spent a lifetime caring, providing smoothing over chaos. That morning, as David buckled his seatbelt beside me, and Liam chattered excitedly in the back, I reminded myself of what mattered: connection, forgiveness, and the chance to feel needed again. Our son Brandon led the caravan up the highway in his silver sedan. I could just make out Amber's auburn hair in the passenger seat, her head bent toward her phone. Liam's stuffed raccoon peeked out of his backpack beside me, its button eyes catching the light. Everything about the moment should have been ordinary, even joyful. But that unease lingered. Half an hour into the drive, my phone buzzed on the dashboard. Brandon's name flashed across the screen. He rarely called while driving, and the sound of his voice was soft, almost too calm. "Hi, Mom. Just checking. You've got that little black bag Amber dropped off, right?" I frowned, glancing at the back seat. "Yes, it's right here." "Why?" There was a pause, a faint crackle over the line. "Nothing," he said quickly. "I just wanted to be sure." His tone, light practiced, carried something else beneath it, something rehearsed. "Everything's fine, Mom. I just love you." Those last words stuck in my chest. Brandon had never been one for casual affection, especially not like that. For the next few miles, I couldn't stop thinking about the bag. It sat innocently behind Liam's seat, zipped tight, silent. But my instincts, the same ones that had carried me through motherhood and decades of family crises, were screaming. I kept my voice steady when David asked if something was wrong. "No," I lied softly, just thinking. As the miles ticked by, my mind replayed the past few years. Brandon losing his job at the warehouse, Amber's endless complaints about money, my quiet checks written for groceries, rent, daycare. I had done it all out of love, helping my son keep his family afloat. But lately, I'd begun to feel like a walking wallet. When they asked for $33,000 to send Liam to a private school, I'd finally said no. Not cruelly, just firmly. "Let's find another way," I told them. Amber's smile had gone cold that day. Brandon's calls had grown distant. The next time I saw them, Liam was shy and quiet, like he'd been told something I wasn't meant to hear. Then came this trip, the sudden invitation. The cheerfulness, too, forced to be real. Amber's insistence that I carry just a small overnight bag. I wanted to believe it was reconciliation. But now, with Brandon's strange phone call echoing in my ears, the pieces began to twist into a shape I didn't want to see. The feeling became unbearable. I told David to pull over at the next rest stop, my voice calm but firm. Liam was busy humming to himself, watching trucks roar by. I opened the back door and lifted the black bag carefully into my lap. It felt heavier than it looked. David watched puzzled as I unzipped it halfway. Inside were folded pajamas, toiletries, and beneath them, something wrapped tightly in plastic. Small rectangular packets sealed and hidden among the clothes. My breath caught. I froze. Years of maternal instinct sharpened into one instant of brutal clarity. This wasn't an accident. They had used me. My own son and his wife had placed something illegal, something dangerous into my car, trusting that I, the dependable grandmother, would carry it across the border without question. My stomach twisted, the betrayal cutting deeper than any wound I'd ever known. David's face paled as he saw the contents. "Miriam," he whispered, voice trembling. I zipped the bag shut, my hands shaking, and looked toward Liam. His innocent laughter filled the car, completely unaware of what had almost happened. The horror of it struck me fully. How close I'd come to being an unwitting criminal. How easily love had been turned into leverage. "Turn the car around," I said. My voice was calm, steady, absolute. David didn't hesitate. The SUV swung smoothly back toward the highway, leaving behind the route to Quebec and the trap our son had set. As the tires hummed beneath us, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had equated love with sacrifice. But love, I realized in that moment, should never come with this kind of price. We caught up to Brandon's car at the next exit. I flashed my headlights until he pulled over onto the shoulder gravel, crunching beneath our tires. The moment his door opened, I saw the guilt written across his face, his usual confidence replaced by something raw and panicked. Amber climbed out on the passenger side, her posture stiff, her eyes darting between me and the back seat. For a long second, no one spoke. The wind carried only the low hum of engines and the rhythmic beat of my own pulse in my ears. "I know what's in that bag," I said. My voice didn't rise, but the steadiness in it made both of them freeze. Brandon's mouth fell open, his face draining of color. "Mom," he started, but I cut him off with a single raised hand. "Don't," I said. "You are going to have me carry drugs across the border. You are going to use me, your own mother, as a cover. Do you have any idea what could have happened? What would have happened to me, to Liam?" Amber flinched but didn't speak. Brandon looked down at the asphalt, jaw clenched tight. "We didn't mean for you to find out," he muttered weakly. "It was supposed to be simple. Just a delivery. Simple?" I repeated, my voice breaking slightly. "You call smuggling drugs simple?" The betrayal was so deep it felt physical, a heaviness pressing against my ribs. I had written their checks, covered their rent, carried their crises for years, and this was what it had come to. David stepped closer beside me, his calm but firm presence anchoring me. "You're lucky she looked," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on our son. "Because if she hadn't, you'd have been calling her from prison or worse." Amber finally spoke, her voice brittle and defensive. "We didn't have a choice. Okay, we were desperate. The money," I snapped, cutting her off. "You had a choice every step of the way. You just didn't want the hard one. You wanted the easy one, the dangerous one, and you wanted me to pay for it again." The words hung between us sharp and final. I turned away, not trusting myself to keep speaking. David's hand brushed mine, gently steadying me. "We're done," I said at last, my voice low but certain. "No more checks, no more bailouts, no more rescues. Whatever hole you've dug, you'll have to climb out of it yourselves." Brandon's voice cracked. "Mom, please." I met his eyes, the same hazel I'd kissed goodnight 1,000 times when he was a boy. "You've been saying please your whole life, Brandon. And every time I gave in because I thought it meant love. But this isn't love. This is manipulation." Amber opened her mouth to argue, but I shook my head. "Don't bother explaining. The truth's already done the talking." Liam stirred in the back seat, his small voice breaking through the tension. "Grandma, are we still going to the cabin?" His innocence hit me like a blow. I turned, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Not today, sweetheart," I said softly. "We're going home." Brandon's face twisted in guilt. "Please," he said again, but I was already walking back to the car. David followed, silent, resolute. As we drove away, I saw their figures shrink in the rearview mirror, two silhouettes standing in the dust, the wind tugging at their clothes, the choices they'd made catching up to them at last. The road back felt different. The same trees, the same sunlight, yet everything looked sharper, heavier. Liam hummed softly in the back seat, unaware of the storm that had passed over his life. I rested my hand on the dashboard, exhaling slowly. "We'll call the police," I said. David nodded. "They need to be stopped before this goes any further." When we pulled into the station, my hand still trembled as I handed over the bag. The officer's expression shifted from polite to grave within seconds. They took our statements, promised to act quickly, and within hours it began. The arrests, the questioning, the unraveling of everything I had once believed unshakable. By the time night fell, I sat in the living room with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the city lights flicker outside the window. The call came just before midnight. Brandon and Amber had been detained at the border after trying to continue on their own. Drugs found in their trunk. Charges pending. I hung up slowly, the ache in my chest, hollow but strangely calm. David brought me a cup of tea and sat beside me. "You did the right thing," he said quietly. I nodded, though the words didn't feel like comfort. "I know," I whispered, "but it still hurts." In the days that followed, everything blurred. Reporters, court dates, Liam's confused questions. He stayed with us, sleeping in the same room that had once been Brandon's. At night, when he cried for his parents, I held him close, whispering the same lullabies I'd once sung to his father. The cycle of care continued, but this time it was anchored in something purer, steadier. One evening, as I tucked Liam into bed, he looked up at me with his wide, curious eyes. "Grandma, are Mom and Dad in trouble?" he asked softly. I hesitated, then answered honestly. "Yes, sweetheart. They made some bad choices. But you're safe now, and that's what matters." He nodded slowly, his small hand clutching mine. "I love you, Grandma." Tears pricked my eyes. "I love you too," I whispered. And for the first time in years, I felt the truth of it without fear, without condition. Weeks passed before the chaos began to settle. The legal process moved swiftly. Brandon and Amber were both charged with possession and intent to traffic across the border. It was a story that might have filled the evening news if not for the quiet efficiency of the authorities who handled it. I attended the hearings because I had to, not out of obligation, but closure. Brandon couldn't meet my eyes the first time he was brought in handcuffed, wearing the same jacket I'd bought him for Christmas 2 years earlier. Amber sat rigid beside him, her face pale, her expression somewhere between defiance and despair. When the judge read the charges aloud, I felt the words echo through me like a bell. Trafficking, conspiracy, child endangerment, all the things that should have been impossible in our family were suddenly listed in cold legal terms. I didn't cry. I just sat still, one hand on David's, feeling each word chip away the illusions I'd held for so long. Brandon finally looked up once the session adjourned, his eyes searching for something in mine. Forgiveness, maybe, or hope. I gave him neither. Only the truth reflected back at him, the quiet, painful truth of consequences long overdue. In the weeks that followed, our house became both sanctuary and shelter. Liam moved in permanently, his small suitcase sitting by the doorway like a symbol of transition. We registered him at the local elementary school, where I had volunteered for years. His teacher, a kind woman named Mrs. O'Connell, promised to help him adjust. "He's bright," she said, "and he's resilient. Kids know when they're loved." At home, I found myself rebuilding routines that had once defined my motherhood. Mornings filled with cereal and gentle reminders to tie shoelaces. Evenings spent reading stories by the fireplace. The rhythm was familiar but different, no longer born from obligation but choice. I wasn't fixing anyone anymore. I was nurturing without losing myself in the process. Still at night, when the house fell quiet, guilt whispered through the silence. I replayed every choice I'd made over the past 5 years. The checks, the compromises, the countless times I said yes when I should have said no. I had thought love meant saving, rescuing, absorbing. But that wasn't love. That was fear disguised as kindness, the fear of losing connection if I didn't keep giving. The irony was cruel. My attempt to hold my family together had nearly destroyed it. One evening, as Liam slept, I sat on the porch with David. The air was cool, filled with the sound of crickets and distant traffic. "Do you think we did the right thing?" I asked quietly. David looked at me for a long moment before answering. "You saved all of us," he said simply. "You stopped something before it got worse. Sometimes doing right doesn't feel good. It just needs to be done." I nodded, staring at the stars. I thought about the line between love and control, between help and harm. Parents often walk it blindly, thinking sacrifice can fix what only accountability can teach. I had crossed that line more times than I cared to admit, but now I finally understood what it meant to step back and let reality do what love could not. Months later, the sentencing came. Brandon received 5 years with probation eligibility. Amber, slightly less. The judge called it a tragedy rooted in dependency and desperation. I called it a turning point. When the gavel fell, I felt no anger, only grief for what had been lost, and a quiet resolve for what could still be rebuilt. Outside the courthouse, Brandon approached me. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Mom, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for saving Liam. I studied his face, the same face I'd once cupped in my hands when he was small, the same eyes that once looked to me for guidance. I reached out, resting a hand on his arm. "You have a long road ahead," I said softly. "But if you choose to walk it honestly, I'll be waiting at the end." He nodded, tears glistening, and for the first time in years, his voice was sincere. "I will." As we drove home, the late afternoon sun spilled across the horizon. Liam's laughter echoed from the back seat as he showed David a drawing he'd made at school, 3 figures standing in front of a little house. "That's us," he said proudly. I glanced at it, a smile tugging at my lips. The simple lines carried more hope than any fortune I'd ever spent. That night, after tucking him into bed, I stood in the doorway and watched him sleep. His breaths were steady, peaceful, untouched by the shadows that had haunted our family. I thought of the black overnight bag, the symbol of everything that had gone wrong, and felt a strange, bittersweet gratitude. That one moment of unease, that one decision to look closer, had changed everything. It had saved us. In the end, I didn't rebuild my family by rescuing them. I rebuilt it by refusing to be their safety net anymore. I protected what mattered most, the future, the innocent, the chance for real healing. Love without boundaries destroys, but love that stands firm, even when it hurts, can save generations. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories of strength, truth, and redemption.